This video is an overview on how to use the e-RegisterNow API, that is, Application Programming Interface. The e-RegisterNow user's account must be enabled for API use. Enabling is done by checking a box in the Edit User menu option. The API is designed to allow developers access to company data for the purposes of making additional apps, reports, or programs. Third-party developers can also request additional API calls if a particular call does not appear to be available. This is done by contacting the e-RegisterNow support team. The documentation for API calls can be found under the API link on the e-RegisterNow homepage. Inside the API documentation, there are 3 horizontal bars near the top of the page, which will open the API menu. On each page, in the right-hand column of the table, there exists detailed documentation for each specific call. Here you will find all of the API call types that are currently available for use. These include 1. Authentication. Allows the API user to receive a 24-hour security token. This token is required for each of the subsequent API calls. 2. Gateway. Allows for the making of credit card sales and refunds. These calls can allow a third-party program to use the company's corporate merchant account. 3. Email. Facilitates the sending out of emails and receipts. 4. Events. Provides information on events. 5. Registrant enrollment. Provides enrollment information as well as event definition settings. 6. Transactions. Provides transaction lookups from approved and declined transactions. There's a 50 record limit for each call. 7. Tickets. Provides information on ticket status and numerical counts for tickets sold and redeemed. 8. Software. Although not an API call, this page provides a list of available e-RegisterNow software and downloads to the latest versions. If you ever need to get a copy of the software, please download the software from this page because it will always contain the latest version. If you click on version history, you will be able to see what changes were made to the program. To use the API, begin by upgrading your e-RegisterNow user account to an API user account. This is done in the C level or M level under the menu option, Edit User, and check the API user box. Next, choose one of the authentication posts. These posts are used to authenticate with the e-RegisterNow server. After submitting the post to the server, you will receive a 24-hour security token to use for access to the rest of the calls. Now we will go over an example on how to use the API to get a customer's receipt without knowing the receipt's reference number. Note, this process is not done by hand, but rather by making API calls. Let's first check to make sure our user account is enabled to be an API user. The next thing we will need is a 24-hour security token. To get a security token, we need to go to the authentication page. For this example, we will use API call 1.0, which requires an iKey. An iKey or ignition key is a key that links multiple M accounts together. To learn the difference between 1.1 and 1.2, please refer to the C and M accounts video. Next, type in your iKey, your e-RegisterNow login email, and your password or PIN. Next, select whether you would like to receive the data in JSON or tab delimited. I will use JSON. Next, click on the Post button. You will then see a long string of letters and numbers. This is your security token. Now that we have our security token, we need to look up the customer's transaction. So we will go to the Transactions page. Since we don't have the customer's reference number, we first need to do a broad lookup for it. This means that we will use API call 6.1. First, put in your security token and input any information that the customer has given you. This may include the cardholder name, credit card expiry date, the registrant's name, their company name, and the amount of the transaction. After inputting the information, again, choose between JSON and tab delimited and click Post. Depending on how much information you input, you might get a return of multiple transactions. To make it easier to read, we can put the JSON return string through the JSON validator. Copy and paste the JSON into the validator and click Validate. It should now be easy to read. We will now find the exact transaction that we are looking for. In this case, it is Fred Flintstone. So we are going to copy the reference number associated to their transaction and paste it into API call 6.0 on the transaction page with your security token. Click Post. Now put the data through the JSON validator and find the URL link. Copy the link and paste it into your web browser. You will now see the customer's receipt. If there is any specific data that you would like to access and e-RegisterNow does not already have a call to access the data, please do not hesitate to contact e-RegisterNow staff to have it be custom made.